What is up, brother? How are you?
I'm doing great. Yourself?
Yes, very, very good. Thank you. Are those dinosaurs behind you?
Yes, they are. There's some are real fossil and some are not. Some are just a replica.
Have you gone out and dug, like gone out on excursions digging?
Yeah, I went on different digs. After my fight with Johnny Hendricks, when I took my time off, I had a chance to travel the world. I went to Dakota, Wyoming. I went to Alberta. I went to Patagonia in Argentina. I went all around the world. I went on different sites. It was funny because when I called out some paleontologists, they were very surprised that I was a big fan of paleontology, and I was with paleontologists, microbiologists, and also a geologist on site. It was amazing.
So cool. Now, you don't fight people in cages now, so you can do whatever you want, right? Like you could, if you wanted to, you could take months and explore that or any other passion you have.
Well, the truth is, you're never, I believe, you are never totally free, because I have responsibility. However, I use mixed martial art to propel me where I wanted to be in life. Like I never liked to fight. I did it because I used that to propel me where I wanted to be in life. This said, having said this, I want to be clear. I don't like the stress of competition, but I love the sport. I love the science of it. I like to spar. I like to spar with my friend when it's very competitive, but it's not malicious. If I hurt someone, I'm like, "Oh, you okay? Up, okay, we start again." But when you fight, you need to be malicious. So that's what I don't like because it creates a crazy stress and it's unbearable for me. But I did it because I used that to propel me where I wanted to be in life, to have the freedom.
It's funny, people talk about accomplishment and legacy and meaning of belts and all these things, but in the end, it's being able to live a wonderful life that you wanted. That's the big result of the fighting, yes?
I agree, Robin, 100%. I think ultimately what everybody wants in life is to be happy. What is linked to happiness, I think, is health. I think it's love, and primarily, when you're healthy and people you love are healthy, that's a big plus. That makes me happy. That's the number one priority. Then, of course, you have other things that wealth help you in a certain way to get certain things that other people don't have, or to bypass certain things. People say money doesn't make people happy, but I disagree. It's not the only thing, but it helps. Like yeah, health. I think health and love are number one. 100%.
Yeah. Being rich and having nobody who loves you and being sick would not be a great life.
100%. 100%.
So I have, I get to see you a fair bit. We work on Karate Combat together. Are you doing any of the Karate Combat shows coming up?
Yeah, I don't know yet when is the next time. I think I have to go in Vegas for the one in Vegas.
You're the
Yeah,
main event?
I love to go. I'm a big fan. What an incredible night was in Dominican Republic last time. I think it was the best card ever in the history. It was just unbelievable. What a thrill we had that night, huh?
Yeah, it was crazy. Did you hear what the main event is for Vegas?
No,
It is Benson Henderson versus Anthony Pettis 3 in the Karate Combat pit.
no way. That's amazing. Wow.
What do you think of when you hear that right away? What do you picture?
Man, it's gonna be crazy because we saw I think the last fight was won on the floor by via an armbar by Anthony
That's
Pettis.
right.
Now he's not allowed to do it. So it's gonna be under the rules of karate combat in the pit. So it's a different ball game. I don't know what to make of it. It's gonna be interesting.
Do you consume other, like as a fan and as a consumer, do you consume bare knuckle boxing or grappling, high level grappling? What do you watch and what are you following?
I don't even watch all the fights, to tell you the truth, Robin. I watched the one last weekend because it was very interesting and I thought it was an incredible card. It was just, it lived up to the expectation, but I don't watch all the shows. There's too much now. And MMA is what I like to do, but it's not who I am, you know. So I have a lot of other stuff. I watch sometimes. I watch the karate combat. I watch the MMA sometimes, but not all the shows. I watch the PFL. You know, it depends who is fighting. I don't watch the company always. I watch the name. I care about the name. Who's fighting against who? UFC, the way they promote their show, it's UFC 295. But I don't care about the number and the event. I care about who's going up against who. That's what I care about.
I agree 100%. And in fact, the more corporate it is, kind of these days, the less I care about it. So I'm literally on a plane right now to Amsterdam to commentate Levels Fight League. And they have a two division champion that is a friend of yours. I believe you trained with him, Tom Breeze.
Yeah, of
Did
course.
you? Yes. Yeah. How good is Tom Breeze?
Well, I haven't seen him for a long time. And when I was with him a few years ago, it was before COVID. He was already exceptionally good. So now I bet he's
Yeah.
probably even better than he was. So he must be pretty damn good.
Yeah, no, Tom looks phenomenal. He talks pretty openly about having to improve the mental aspect of his game and become sort of as bulletproof as you can, and it's accepting of the challenges and the setbacks as possible. This is something you've spent a lot of time doing too, right?
Yeah, when you're a fighter, you put yourself in a very uncomfortable situation because it's terrifying, and you have to remember one message that I can give to all the people that have to go through something that is terrifying and that makes them very uncomfortable. Remember that there is no courage without fear, and bigger the risks, sometimes bigger is the reward. So you have to go through it. You know that you have to go through it. You know, it's that's what gonna makes you appreciate what you have after when you look back at things. But when you're in the middle of it, it's I remember it's unbearable. But yeah, it's terrible.
And you're right, that applies to everybody, not just in fighting. You and I couldn't be further in distance. As I was a low level professional fighter, you were a champion of the world. I started very, very late at a very low level. But both of us have in common, it was terrifying and we did it anyways. And now we have wonderful lives. You know, I get to do what I love every day, all the time, traveling the world, literally pursuing my passion. And like you said earlier, you know, you have to step into cages with Michael Bisping and Johnny Hendricks and the most terrifying like martial artists on earth, and now look at the life it's given you.
Everybody react to these kinds of situations. For me, I think I'm a little bit more like you are. You know, I'm scared, and I remember at the time I even seek the help of sports psychologists because when I was looking around me, I felt I was out of place. I didn't feel I was in the right field of work because all the guys were. They said, "Oh, I can't wait for Saturday. You know, I'm gonna kick his ass and stuff like that." But I was like, "Man, I'm freaking terrifying," and I never felt it was. I was happy where I was at, so I seek the help of sports psychologists, and they were telling me they were trying to brainwash me, Robin. They were like, "Oh, don't stop saying you're afraid. You're not afraid. You're excited." I'm like, this doesn't really apply. I'm excited if it's -20 in Montreal, and I know next week I'm going in vacation. I could be excited if you see, like if you know you're going to do something, that you love, it's I'm not excited to go in a freaking cage, not knowing if I'm gonna be badly hurt, humiliated, or winning the prize. Like for me, it's terrifying because I think it's a sign of intelligence. You recognize the threat, and I realize now that the fear made me a much better fighter. I want to be afraid before a fight. I know it's incredibly uncomfortable, but I want to feel that way because I know it increases my reaction time. It makes me train harder in the fear that my opponent will be more well prepared than I am. It makes me more explosive. So I want it. But some people, it crumbles them. You know, for
Yes.
me, I learned how to domestic my fear, to use it to make me better, and I think that's the key in this game.
The British, I commentate sometimes BKB. It is a sort of a traditional, historic British bare knuckle boxing, not like the Americans. And when I'm over there with the British, they call that galvanizing. The fear galvanizes you. That's the word that they use, and that it actually, yes, makes you better, makes you stronger, makes you more resistant to pain, and makes you push through. But I like this theme today, brother, that we're talking about it. From a selfish standpoint, I love talking about these kinds of things. That a lot of times the world is things ahead of us are very scary, very difficult. They seem insurmountable, and some people do them anyways. It's an odd tangent here, but when we were in the Dominican, I asked you about Jake Paul. When we look at a guy like that, the whole world wants him to fail. He has a lot to lose, and yet here he is fighting Anderson Silva and all of these. He dropped Anderson Silva late in the fight. That's real. Tell me what you've seen from observing some of these guys.
Well, I don't know him personally. I met him a few times, and I've talked to some of the people in his team, and I can tell you for sure the people in his team that he surround himself with, they have the credential. They're real people. And behind this old masquerade of a YouTuber, trash talking person that he looks like, there's a very good athlete that trains really really hard, who is very extremely serious about his training and his preparation, who does all the sacrifice that it needs to do to be as the best he can be the night of the fight, and he has people around him that he surrounds himself with true legit credential. So when you put all that together, and he works really really hard, he wants you to believe that he's only a YouTuber and he trash talk. It's a very very smart strategy, but in reality, he is a real boxer. He's a legit boxer. I mean, I'm not saying he's gonna be world champion, and maybe he is. Who knows? But he's right up there, and he fought many guys like MMA veteran, but he also fought Tommy Fury, and he looked good. I mean, he lost that fight, but he looked good. He's legit. He is truly. For me, I admire that. You know, he took a big risk. People hate him, but that's his thing. Hate me, love me, don't ignore me. And when I had the occasion to meet him a few times, and he was very nice. He's not nice to the person he's about to fight, because that's the way he promotes his brand, the event. He wants you to tune in. He wants you to hate him or love him. What he doesn't want you to is to not care. So he's gonna make as much noise as he can. But behind this whole masquerade, once again, remember there's a legit fighter.
The whole process doesn't work if he isn't a driven, hardworking. Dylan Dennis isn't those things. It's just a disaster. But when you are those things, the process works. It's also fascinating. Someone who hates him right now says this guy sucks, and they're convinced of it because they're mad. They'll hear Georges St-Pierre, one of the great martial artists ever, say this, and they'll not have. It'll be dissonance, cognitive dissonance. They won't. I hate him. He must suck, and yet George is saying that he's driven and hardworking. Like that stress that he creates. It is a fascinating thing. There's art of war stuff in there. There's five rings. There's a lot of these things.
Yeah,
There's intelligent elements going on.
but there's a thing that people don't realize though. He's he's dragging them into boxing. Boxing is a very limited form of fighting. Very limited. We're not talking about mixed martial art. Because
Two
if you would have
hands.
fight Anderson Silva and Nate Diaz or Tyron Woodley or Ben Askren in mixed martial art, I have to go and say that I believe he would have got his ass kicked in mixed martial art. But he's very smart. He dragged them into his world of boxing. And boxing is a very different form of combat. It's very specialized in a few things, but it's very limited. So these guys, they blindly go and get let themselves get dragged into this world that they never compete in. For most of them, Anderson competed, boxing before, but most of them have no idea what they are about to step into. I think it was a genius strategy from Jake Paul to do that. He dragged them into his world. He dragged them outside of their comfort zone, and they did not even realize what was going on. I think it was genius. I was looking at it from an outside perspective. I was like, man, they're falling for it. I can't believe it. I mean, they have no idea what they're stepping himself into. I spar with different world champion in boxing. I can hold my arm for 2, 3, 4 rounds. But after that, because they're more efficient than I am, it's time for me to rotate and get out because I'm gonna get hurt. We MMA fighters can go into boxing, but boxing most of the time cannot go into MMA. And
Mhm.
they know that. They and the Jake Paul, the Paul brothers know that, and I think they did a fantastic job in terms of strategy to drag them in their world.
Yeah, and they dragged some of them through manipulation, art of war, psychological combat. They dragged Nick or Nate Diaz in with money, right? Nate understood. It's like this is the most dangerous boxing match. Still very dangerous, but if I'm going to make crazy money, and I can definitely figure out how to not get hurt by this guy. So in Nate's point, he will never lose a mental manipulation war. But if you throw enough money at him, he might do it.
Yeah, there's money, of course. There's the platform, and I believe some of these guys genuinely believe that they could go out there and knock Jake Paul in one round. But the truth is, Jake Paul is he's a talented, he's a good boxer. You know, like a lot of guys try to discredit him, but it is boxing. It's a very different form of form of fighting. You know, if you go in MMA now, it's different. I heard that they want to do. Some of them want to do MMA. I know they have a background in wrestling. This if I'm an advisor, I would tell them to take time and make sure they work on on different things, because now you talk about something true very different than boxing. You know, I don't want them to make the same mistake they make their opponent doing. Now they're stepping into a much different world now if they go into MMA, because there's almost no rules out there.
Yeah, it's true. Now, you've told me, and I've heard you say publicly, that under the right circumstances, you might put on big boxing gloves or compete in certain things. Definitely grappling. Um, some weeks back, people were talking like George is grappling Damian Maya, but you told me that wasn't true, and in fact, maybe it was Nick Diaz at first that was being discussed.
Well, a few names have been thrown at me. It was Nick Diaz, that was the primary name. Then it was they were talking about Kamaru Usman. They were talking about who else? They had a bunch of guys. I mean, Diaz, Nick Diaz was the number one guy that they wanted to. Then Maya, Burns, Usman, all these guys were just secondary, like as a second option if it turns out that Diaz could not make it, because if you look historically, sometimes he's not the most you know what I mean, the most
Yeah.
reliable guy for certain things. But apparently he was very interesting of doing it, and it was all set. And unfortunately, I got hurt. I tear my rotator cuff, my subscap, and my labrum, unfortunately. So I am still waiting right now. I did some stem cell. My shoulder felt much better. I was at Ways to Well in Austin, Texas. It feels a lot better, but my problem also might be mechanical. So even though a lot of the things will heal 100%, maybe mechanically I will have to, attach something, the labrum, to prevent my shoulder to dislocate. I'm still waiting a few weeks to be able to do the test when the other things around it will heal. Now I'm gonna make a test and put it to the test, and we'll see if mechanically my shoulder is okay, and I'm able to go back in training.
Yeah, I know. I mean, first of all, being able to have a grappling contest, something that would be fun. But training is something that's mandatory for you to be healthy and happy, right? Like this is the root of, it's what they call a keystone habit. Like for you, training your body, it makes everything else in your life better, correct?
Yeah, because for me it's also a therapy. I Training helped me being a better person because I can unleash all my anger, all my negative energy, and it it it, it, for me it manifests physically. I'm able to let it go through my training, and when I'm done it releases a lot of dopamine and it makes me feel fantastic. There's a lot of things I do to try to therapeutically feel better. I Training is one of them. I also do sauna. I like to do a cold tub. I like to do also fasting. I believe if you don't put your body through stress, and I'm talking about a controlled stress environment, not a fight or flight stress thing,
Mm,
a controlled stress, it helps you to stay healthier. Because people think they see always stress as a bad thing. It is a bad thing when it's fight or flight. But I think everything like training, when you train, you put your body through stress, and it allows your body to improve, to gain. And it's the same thing when you do fasting. Fasting is a form of stress. A cold tub, cold immersion is a form of stress. A sauna is a form of stress. They call it hormesis. When you put your body through a controlled stress environment, and it allows it to gain, to
mhm,
get better from it. And that's what I like to use, and I try to do that to stay healthier, to increase my longevity and be happier.
mm, mm. When people ask me about you, they know that I know you or work with you in different places. I'll talk about what a good guy you are and how like real of a person you are. But then I'll often tell them two different stories. I'm going to tell them to you, and then I want you to tell me what you think when you hear it. One was when I was doing a documentary on you before you fought Bisping. We were in LA. You went to train with a strength and conditioning guy, trains a lot of football players and sprinters and boxers and stuff. And he asked you to do this box jump sequence. And you started to do the box jump sequence, and then you just weren't getting it right away. And all of a sudden, you just zoomed in on it and you obsessed over it. All your team was like, "Oh, we've seen this before." They take their bags off and they sit down, and you were not going to leave. You were, first of all, delighted to find something that you didn't learn right away. It's just so happy to find something that was really challenging, and you didn't leave until you perfected that thing, no matter how long it took. Tell me if that's true, and tell me what that makes you think of.
Yeah, I never been diagnosed with this condition, but I think I'm a little bit obsessive compulsive,
Think, yeah.
which turns out to be a good thing for me for my field of work. And I think one of the reasons why I became champion is because of that. You know, Robin, I was very athletic, but I never been the strongest man. I never been the fastest. I never been the biggest one. I think what made the difference for me, what gave me the edge, was my mental. And I think being obsessive compulsive could be a good thing when you use it right. However, now I'm retired, and to function in a normal society, sometimes I have to let go, and it's very hard for me. It's crazy hard, Robin. Sometimes I'm in certain situation. You have no idea how crazy I am. Like I will. There's certain things like when I do something on my left, I have to do it equally on my right. There's certain things when I train I do, and I try to not let that disrupt my everyday life outside of my training. I try to keep this obsessive compulsivity only in my training, but sometimes it merge into my life, and I know I'm not the kind of guy who's gonna go open the door 10 times. I'm not. That's not what I do. But there's certain things that, especially when I clean my room or things like that, when it's, for example, for cleaning, like, man, I'm nuts. Like I see one little dust or one little thing, I have to clean it. Like people think I'm like, you are you nuts? I'm cleaning now. Now it's falls. in Canada. There's a lot of leaf falling on the
Leaves. Oh
floor.
no, you
I'm
got to get
cleaning
every
my
leaf.
pool with the net, and there's freaking leaf that once it's done, there's free. I'm about to leave. There's a freaking leaf that fall back into the pool. I have to go back and clean it again, and I have to leave the pool clean.
Yeah.
There is one leaf that fell back in it when I'm about to leave. I'm going back and I'm cleaning it. I want it to be. I know it sounds nuts, but it makes me feel that's how I am. I don't want to leave if it's not 100% perfect.
So that does not surprise me. And you said you have no idea how crazy I am, Robin. And my thought was, well, when I tell the second story, it's evidence that I do know how crazy you are, because the second story, we were in your gym and we had just trained and everybody's tired. And of course, you're always going to do something more and something more. And you bring me over to a mirror and you say, Robin, we have to train our peripheral vision. And so you have me rolling my eyes in a particular way, and then you said you'll stretch the nerve even more if you stick your tongue out. So
Yeah.
I'm sticking my tongue out in a mirror, and I'm trying to stretch my peripheral vision that 0.1% where I'll see the kick, which is why you're doing it. And then I'm thinking, this isn't real. There's a camera, and George is playing a trick on me.
No,
Um,
it is real. It's I work at the Olympic Stadium with David Tangius, who is a doctor, a neural doctor who works on reaction time and speed of decision making time. And he was explaining to me how to relax the nerve. I know it sounds crazy, but you can
show
look
me.
at it, you can make your research, and it's well documented. You push your tongue down, you try to look up, and because we're every day we look at our cell phone, we look at the books, or we read something, our vision always goes down like this. So you have to undo what you've been doing all day. So you don't want it to be down like this. You want it to be going like this. So the exercises you push down, he showed me the push down. And if you do that, you'll feel a stretch. You'll feel a stretch physically. Do it well. Your eyes has to go not in the ceiling. You want to go up to the sky, outward, and push the thumb down. And it will help to stretch the nerves, the optic nerves inside your head. Yeah, it's a lot of
Yes.
people don't know that, and there after that, there's a lot of exercise you can do with dots with your eyes. So the key in this is you want to. A lot of fighters have what we call blind spot. They cannot see certain things, and when I fought someone, I was studying them. I knew that they had certain blind spot. I knew who, when I was going to fight someone, what I was more likely to hit him with because he had blind spot. Um, so maybe one guy his blind spot is here, so I know if I fight him, I'm gonna fake this way and go with a punch this way. And there's a way that you can work on this, because when you fight, you don't when you have to look at something, you don't always want to use your entire body to turn and look at something because it's not efficient. You want to only use your eyes. So there's exercise that you can work on that are dots that with a sound that gives you a timing, a rhythm to follow. Beep, 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 beep,
I saw
beep,
you doing
beep.
it. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of clinic. They work on these things, and these for athletes are very often kept secret because that gives us an edge. We don't want to talk about it, but it gives us an edge on that people don't have. Is it proven that it helps you perform better in fighting? Can this translate into fighting? I don't know 100%, but we always want to try to be ahead of the curve. So when you have an opportunity to you discover something that might help you, you take it and you go with it.
Yeah. So um, some people, I'm a nerd like this. I'm just obsessed like you are with this. So when I saw you doing that and moving your feet in certain times with beats and reaction time training, I was blown away by it. But also the act of seeing you do it, and the act of seeing you train it, and the act of seeing you, driven to do it, and seeking out anything that would give you that tiny, tiny edge. All of that to me is that these are the things people have no idea are happening to be the greatest in the world at something. Most people have no idea about this.
Yeah, man, it's more than training, and you need to think outside the box. You need to be willing to take a risk and do something that maybe some people will tell you you're crazy, but you will realize that it will, improve you. I remember when I first started doing ice bath, people think I was crazy, and I was doing it wrong because I was doing it always after training. And
Mm,
it's good if you're trying to reduce inflammation, but it's not good if you try to create hypertrophy and gain muscle mass. So there's a way of doing it. So it was good for me. It served me very well, but not when I was trying to put on muscle mass. I didn't know at the
yeah.
time because science was catching up. It's the same thing with these vision exercise that I'm talking about. I know very well that the American football players and a lot of elite athletes are working with that kinds of stuff. Maybe the science have not catch up. Well, maybe the data is still not available to people, but I'm truly convinced that it makes a difference. Does it translate 100% to sports specific? I'm not sure, but I think it does because even in the army, the pilots, the navy use that kinds of exercise. I know that because I've talked to some of them. So if the army use it, they're always ahead of the curve. If the military use it, that means that there's something out there. So it's worth to open your mind to these things and to research and investigate on it.
Mm. Um, I want to thank you for hanging with me, George. It's always such a pleasure, and I always gain so much from it personally as well. But I don't want to take up too much of your time, but I want to ask you about a couple other things. One is sort of the philosophy. The more you study anything, the more you kind of study it, and it opens up and becomes much broader. So when you study martial arts, when you study improving your body and moving your body and all these things, you start to look at things philosophically. As you become a better modern martial artist, do some of the things that you heard about kung fu and early martial arts suddenly actually start to make sense? Do you know what I mean? Like, I'll give you one. There's an old sort of story. The idea that if my opponent does not move, I do not move. At the first instance of my opponent's movement, I move first. Now, if you think about it, how can I move first if you've already moved, right? But over time, we start to see that this is, although metaphor, kind of true, right? There are times where you are moving, even though to the naked eye of the observer, they haven't detected movement in your opponent. You've detected precursors to movement, like changes in tension or breath, right? Where they haven't yet moved, but they've moved enough to tell you to move. Do you know what I'm getting at?
Yeah, no, 100%. And it also has to do with efficiency. If you move for nothing, you lose energy. If you don't move, you don't lose energy. This been said, however, it depends of the context of when it happens, because we know if you're not moving, if you're a steady target, you're easy to get hit. A target that moves is a harder target to hit. Ask any sniper, he will tell you the same thing in fighting. So it always depends of the context. And in
Yeah.
philosophy, I mean, in martial art, I believe it's divided in different branches. There's the fighters branches, like what I did, MMA fighting. That was pure
Yeah.
fighting. That I was performing into that branches. Now I also perform into a different branches. It's more into acting, choreography. The
Mm,
when you say mixed martial art, the choreography, it's beautiful. Even in fighting, when my ultimate goal in fighting is to win, to not get hurt. But also one of my goal, a secondary goal, is to be able to perform a display of technique that is beautiful to the audience. That's my goal. That's why we call it mixed martial art. The
yeah.
artistic word, that's where it comes from. And also art in a way that you have the branch of fighting, you have the branch of choreography, more for movies, forms and katas, stuff like that. And you have also the branch of philosophy. I see a picture of Bruce Lee behind you. Bruce Lee was a great philosopher. I think that's how he revolutionized the world of mixed martial art. A lot of people want to believe that he was an amazing fighter. We could have put him in UFC, would have kicked everybody's ass. I don't think so. But some people do believe that. I believe why he was known and why he changed the world of mixed martial art, and he changed my world by his influence. It was because of his philosophy. His philosophy was just amazing. So you have guys that are doing martial art, and they are very strong. I mean, they're still fight. I'm sure he's much stronger than the common human being. He would have, he's an incredible martial artist. But I think his philosophy is what really changed the world. There's also guys, for example, you look at Jean-Claude Van Damme. His forms, he's a movie star, like, yeah, of course he's a real fighter. He could have beat up and defend himself, but I'm talking about against an elite of the elite, maybe not. I'm talking about in terms of movie. It was unbelievable. His choreography, his kick, his spin jump kick, it was amazing. And there's guys that are
Splits.
fighters, maybe not so much of a good of a philosophy or acting, but they're good. They're real fighters. Like they
Mhm.
go in a cage, they fight, or in boxing. So that's how I see mixed martial. When you talk about not mixed, but when you talk about martial art, combat sports sort of
Yes.
environment.
George, you and I always talk about these things that fascinate us, and I love it. I just love it. I want to ask you about something that's a little less positive, which is not usually what you and I talk about. But I know that although you're always looking for a way to expand the abilities of the skills, you've been very against like these performance enhancing drugs and these kinds of things. Have you noticed that the UFC sounds like it's most likely going to quote manage itself and test itself? And what were your thoughts?
Yeah, and I'm 100% against that. The problem is, if you want to test the athlete, you have to do it by an independent organization, because UFC, if there's a fighter that is headlining a card who tests positive, it's not in the best interest of the UFC that one of their headliner tests positive. So there will
Right.
be corruption. You can't accept any corruption. It needs to be white or black. It cannot be gray. We cannot give anyone a special treatment. Anyone. It needs to. That's how it needs to be. I'm sorry for people who don't agree with that. That's the way to do it. It needs to be black or white, no gray zone. So, and it needs to be, if USADA leaves, they need to find another organization that does it, that is working independently, that UFC
Yeah.
has no control whatsoever on the result, on the testing. That's how it needs to be. Otherwise, it's corrupt. It is corrupt. We cannot just, we think they're going to do a good job. No, because they have an interest in which they don't want their best sellers to test positive. So even they're not doing it, we cannot rely on that. It will be a disaster. It will touch their credibility, and I really hope they don't go that route, because people are not stupid. They're gonna be like, "Come on, man! It's gonna be touching their credibility," and it's gonna be a big step behind. I just hope if they leave USADA, they find another, maybe VADA, or another organization to do that job.
Yeah, I just wanted to get your thoughts on that because I know that's something that you're passionate about. What else is coming up for you? You mentioned movies. Is there some cool movies you're working on?
Yeah, I there's a movie that I've been working on. It's called La Cage. It's coming out at the end of next year. It's gonna be big. It's like Entourage, but for mixed martial art. There's a lot of mixed martial art fighters that are in it, and it's gonna be. I think it's gonna be the best project for movies in mixed martial art. A great actors, great producer and realizator on it, and I have other project on it right now. I can't talk of it, unfortunately. I have an online academy for people who wants to learn mixed martial art techniques and mixed martial art tactics. That's something
Mm.
different that I offer on my academy. I talk about the techniques, how to throw punches and the technicality, but also talk about the tacticality, which
The
is
why and the
nobody
when.
have ever done before, and I'm talking about that in it. And yeah, I have a home fitness equipment online, Base Block Pro, that I sell home fitness equipment that is doing very, very well. Food supplement, my line Warrior, animal organs, grass-fed beef, animal organ, heart and livers are the two most nutritious organs. Also, I have also another project. I have a vodka that comes out that already came out. I have online betting, Bet99. And I have one more that is going to be huge. It's called Rush Fit 2. It's a fitness martial art program that is going to be available November 1st. It's coming. It's going to be online, available to the world, and it's going to be big because fitness touches everybody. It's not everybody that want to step into a cage, but everybody want to be healthy, want to have a better quality of life, and they can do it with the Rush Fit 2 program while learning martial arts and learn how to defend themselves and use it as a fitness tool or also as a self-defense tool.
Is so there's lots of being an entrepreneur and starting to manage multiple things. That's a very modern way of thinking. Back in the day, you had one business. Now we learn to manage many ideas. Is it hard? Is it hard? Like time, your scheduling and your time and your organization of your day, is that challenging?
Yeah, it is hard, Robin, and it was a long learning process, and I'm still learning as I'm doing it. I'm by no means perfect. I still make a lot of mistakes, but I'm very fortunate to have a great team around me that surround me and that guide me. And the people that are in my team, when I hire someone, I don't hire him to tell him what to do. I hire him because I want him to tell me what I should do. So I pay him for his expertise and also his services, but also especially for his expertise. And I'm very fortunate to be. I'm surrounded by great people.
So before I let you go, not to put you on the spot, but it's not always easy when somebody asks something like this. But can you think of a funny or interesting or weird story that you've never told me, or you probably never told anyone from your travels, from fighting? Give me
I will.
something that, yeah, please.
I will tell you now because your podcast it talks a lot about mixed martial art. I'm gonna tell you a story, and it's a true story, and you can make your due diligence and ask the people that I was with before my first fight with Matt Serra. I was in Albuquerque. I hurt my knees, and we were on the road. I was training, and I think I was coming back from the hospital or somewhere. It was at night time. I was with Rashad Evans, Mike Van Arsdale, Ali Abdelaziz, and another fighter is a Mexican guy called Alejandro. We were in the car. I was in the back seat. We were in the highway, and all the five of us witnessed something that night that still to this day we can't explain. We saw, and what is very strange is the way I describe it, because I hear the interview of the guys I was with, and the way they describe it is different of how I see it a little bit. The way I see it like I think it was like a sort of a triangular shape or something, sort of a light coming towards us, and then it changed direction and it went it went like it shoot off the sky like, and it disappeared. And when it happened, all five of us stay silent for like a few seconds, and then we were like, what the hell was that? Oh my god. And this you can ask Rashad, you can ask Mike Van Arsdale, you can ask Ali Abdelaziz. We saw something. I don't know what it was. We saw what we call a UFO. However, I am not an astrophysicist. I cannot tell you that what we saw it was alien, or I don't know if it was a natural phenomenon or it was a meteor that bounced back something in midair and changed direction and then like shoot off the sky. I have no idea because I don't have the credential to tell you what it was. I'm not a trained observer. But I can tell you we saw something very, very crazy strange. So if you ever talk or interview one of these guys, ask him about it. And
I,
like I said, the craziest thing about that event that happened is that the way he might describe what we saw might be different from what I just described it's like we don't like if you see a plane, you know your brain identifies something. Oh, it's a plane. It's two wing. You know what is a plane. But what I saw, I don't know what I was looking at. So maybe my brain was playing tricks on me.
and
And
each of you might have interpreted it differently because you
right,
don't have a reference point.
that's right, exactly. That's what I'm saying. So it was, from my perspective, an unidentified flying object. When you say unidentified, that means that doesn't mean an alien. You just don't know what it is. Maybe there is an explanation, but my education, my level of education and expertise cannot find a plausible explication for what I've seen. And the guy I was with, same thing. So if you ever talk to these guys, ask them about that night, what happened. It's very interesting.
I will. And finally, this is not we're not drawing a conclusion based on that at all. So this is not connected to that, but you made me think about it. Um, do you think, I do believe this, do you think it is more likely that there is other intelligent life in our universe than not? Just intuitively or based on whatever information you've been exposed to in your life?
I'm 100% a believer. I mean, now we know with the information we have through science that there's many other stars, and a lot of these stars have a planet around them, and some of these planets sometimes are in the what we call the Goldilocks zone, in the perfect zone where it can sustain life. So the chances that there's some life out there increases every time. Is there intelligent lives? I don't know, because it took a lot. It according to science, once again, it took a long time on the planet Earth for intelligent life to uh, to form. Are we the first? I don't know. According to evidence, we are the first, but
That's the
maybe
only
they
evidence
were
we do
there
have.
before, and all evidence got wiped out. I don't know. I have no idea. But these are things that keep me awake at night, and it's fun to think about it. Yeah, and I was reading yesterday something about entanglement of particles and the quantum physics, and now they know that. I don't want to get too deep about this, but it's very interesting. They know that before Einstein, they thought nothing can go faster than the speed of light, but now they know it's not true. In entanglement, you can put two particles in crazy distances, and they will react exactly the same and the same at the same time.
Yeah.
I'm too
So
dumb
they
to
are
understand what I was reading, but that's what it says. So I guess it might be possible that some civilization might find a way to travel faster than the speed of light. Who knows? I don't know.
Yeah. And I mean, this is just a simple response to it. But when you said life took a long time to form, that's relative. Like if something formed, uh, you know, um, trillions and trillions of years earlier, our time would seem like a small time. Time is very, very relative to other measurements of time. We could talk about this kind of stuff forever, and we will in
Robin,
lots
just one thing I can tell you. You talk about time being relative. I remember when I was a kid, and I'm sure it's the same thing for you, and I'm sure some people will relate to that. When I was a kid, my summer felt like an eternity. When I was finishing school and I had the whole summer to myself, I was like, man, it felt like an eternity. Now it goes like this. And I talked to one of my friends. He's 91 years old. He's an older guy. He's still in shape. He's all there. He's very smart. His name is George Renitz, and I was talking to him. He's older, and he's very, very smart. And I was asking him about time. George, he said, when you get to my age, years flies like this.
Jeez.
Like I'm like,
Greg.
my God. So time is really relative to everybody.
Yeah. Yeah.
Their
True.
perception of time is different than mine, and different for him and for him.
100%. Well, you've given us all something to look forward to, or your friend has. But next time we get together, we're going to talk. I'll write it down. We'll start talking about the relativity of time as it relates to moving combatively, and we'll start right back here next time I see you. Thanks, man. This is the first episode of Clash TV Combat, and I really wanted to get something special, and thank you for giving it to us.
Thank you, Robin. It was nice talking to you. Good luck with your project, man.
Thank you, my brother. I will see you in Las Vegas.
Okay, man. Hush.